Fuck it. Yeah, there are big things to talk about today. Boomer Live. What's up, everybody? Episode 144. First podcast on Garv's Twitter. So shout out Garv.
Is it on mine?
Yeah.
Hey, let's go. I'm
There,
out
see
here,
that little
bro.
guy? Yeah.
Nice.
Yo,
Big things.
shout out. Hopefully, like some people I follow are listening, like Bark and Lumberg and NFT Update. Just like some big people that I've been trying to connect with.
Mm-hmm.
Jonah, I don't know.
Very cool.
I don't know. Just devs in Web3. Shout out them. Continue.
So today is January 5th. Can I say that? Obviously, it's a new year, but it feels like it's this
year is different.
No. All right. We've been on that move for a little bit, but like, it feels like it's dragging almost. I don't know. I kind of feel like I'm in the middle of January, and it's fucking January 5th today.
I don't know how I feel about this year.
Do you guys feel like that at all?
Well, me and him were talking at the bar, and I was spitting about all the very traumatic deaths that have already happened.
Mm-hmm.
And there's only been 5 days.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like this
Since
kind
the
of
year.
I feel like that happened. Yeah. There's
Like,
yeah.
I don't know, and I feel like that contributed to why it's been dragging so much.
Sure.
It's just like there's just so much like.
I feel like every fucking day there's a new huge world news story.
Yeah.
And that's it. There's been like no like big sports.
Yeah, there's been
thing.
nothing like heartwarming. There's been no
No.
like real
There's
nice
no
thing.
no positivity on the news right now, and you
Well, the
know
media-
we're trying to
The
spread
media is
that
definitely
positivity.
centralized over
Yeah.
negative news.
Yeah.
Negative news gets more views than good news.
And which is sad.
I think it's been
you know?
like that for a while. Though.
It
Like,
is sad, but that's
I-
just how the world
but I
works.
think
in
people-
And
our
you wonder why
society.
people are depressed all the time.
I don't think people
Bro.
wonder why people are depressed.
Bro,
I think the people that are
can
in
I-
charge
bro,
of
on
putting out
God,
that
bro.
media circuit,
On
I
God,
think people
bro.
that are in charge of putting out that media circuit, listen, man, not for nothing, but depressed people spend more time on the internet and spend more money on the internet than happy people.
Because
So-
they want to escape reality, though. I think
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
what the whole concept is. Like,
This isn't
Getting
exactly
away
a
from
new
reality.
thought. Like this has been
No.
going on for a while now.
but I think
It's one of the main issues with media. Speaking as one of the members of the media.
yeah, maybe we realized that a couple years ago, and people are starting to realize that more.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So
Hey, we got a like from Ben the Vein today.
I did see that when I just pulled up.
Awesome.
Shout out Ben Davis. Thank you.
And over what, of course, we know what over what. So I'm gonna just jump right into it. Jake Paul has signed a deal with the Professional Fighters League. He has his fucking contract is not out there yet, and there's been a lot of speculation. There's been a lot of things said. So I'm gonna clear up what has actually been said and what has. I'm going to clear up what's been said, what we know to be fact, and what has come from Jake Paul's mouth that we can assume can be fact, but it's also him just hyping up his own brand. So Jake Paul has signed with the Professional Fighters League. He now owns a stake of equity in the Professional Fighters League, along with his manager and agent, who used to be a CEO of the UFC. So that came to light, and I realized, like, oh, Jake Paul has a really fucking good management team around him, which, of course, he does. But he owns a stake in equity in the PFL now. So he's a very minority owner. And he is starting a super fights division in this PFL. Now, before I go into this, do you guys know the format of PFL? It's like regular season playoffs championship every single year, which I think is a really, really cool format. And, you know, Demetrius Johnson is, I would say, the biggest, or no, he's in one, but he was in PFL. He's one of the biggest points contention in the PFL right now. You got Thiago Santos, Shane Burgos, a bunch of old UFC guys. But this new division is super fights, which means it's going to take a while. Like this shit's not going to get off the ground in the next 2 months. It's going to take a while. We are going to see some guys get signed there that are big names. It's not going to be a lot. I would think that we're going to start seeing the first super fight division in like the summer. You know, because I think they want to capitalize on the momentum they gained today, which was a fucking lot of momentum. But you know, they have one fighter in the division. They can't do shit with it yet. Right. So Jake Paul's going to do that. And then he obviously, we know, called out Nate Diaz to a 2-fight deal. Now, Jake Paul has not signed a 2-fight contract with the PFL. He's just signed a contract with the PFL. It has no parameters around what fights, and after this amount of fights, his contract's over. Those details have not come out yet. But what he has offered, just from his own perspective, is that he wants to offer those fights to Nate, saying like, if you box me first, then we can do MMA. And I believe he's serious about it. I think that if Nate Diaz turned around and said he'd do it, I think they would sign that like tomorrow. And I think it's super fucking smart because he wants to box him first, which is, of course, what you want to do. And then that not only puts Nate in a situation where he's not practicing his jiu-jitsu for 6 months, he's just practicing boxing, but it gives Jake Paul maybe a year to fucking train MMA, which is not even going to be enough, but he desperately needs. I don't know if you guys saw this, but he posted a video today of him. He put day 1 of training kicks on his Twitter today.
I did see that.
Like, you just signed an MMA contract and then you start training kicks? Oh,
I think
boy.
he's bullshitting.
And yeah, I also
He had a
believe that he is
cage in his house, bro.
Mm-hmm.
He had videos of him in like 2014, like, I want to be an MMA fighter.
Yep.
I want to be an MMA.
I think he's been training for a long time, just no cameras,
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah, I'm sure he has. I'm sure he has. Day 1 of training kicks is cap. But it's like, now that he's an MMA fighter, it's his first real MMA training, which of course it isn't. Now, here's what I've seen a lot on Twitter. Logan Paul has a wrestling background. Logan Paul went to the University of Ohio, like not Ohio State, but the University of Ohio, go Bobcats, and he participated in wrestling at his college and apparently was pretty good at it. We've seen videos of him wrestling
Division
Paulo
one.
Costa.
Division 1, right?
Yes. Yeah, I believe so. So he can wrestle, and
He looks like he can wrestle.
Jake Paul has no collegiate background, but he says he comes from a wrestling background. Now, that could mean that he's trained with his brother in wrestling and he's done other things. I'm sure he has, but it's not a real wrestling background. He comes from a boxing background. That's what this is. I'm interested to know your guys' thoughts now because I've taken up a monologue over like 5 minutes. Do you think that we see Jake Paul in an MMA fight in 2023?
Probably. If it's I doubt it's against Nate Diaz.
Oh, it's against a scrub.
Yeah, I doubt it's against Nate Diaz. Because I feel like if Nate Diaz gets him to the ground at all, which I don't even know if it would go to the ground. Wait, easily?
Oh, no, I mean, if he got him to the ground, it'd be over.
Yeah,
easily.
like I don't think it
say.
would be. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think Nate Diaz is it's an interesting fight for boxing because I think he fucks him up in boxing.
You think Jake Paul fucks up Nate in boxing?
Yeah, and everyone's gonna be on like, oh, Nate Diaz is gonna fuck up in MMA, and I honestly think Jake Paul would win in an MMA fight. I really do. That's my pick.
Wow, that's
I know.
I'm not gonna lie, that's a hot fucking take.
That's a hot take.
That's a real hot take.
I really think.
Do you think
Jake
that
Paul
happens
would
this
win.
year?
Yeah, I don't know. Let's talk about Nate Diaz with Rising.
So he hasn't officially signed with Ryzen. He put out a tweet of the Ryzen background. I can pull it up. There's been no other news. It's literally just people saying like, does this mean Nate Diaz is signing with Ryzen? What's going on with Ryzen? Like,
yeah, I
think, and again, this is purely speculation, but if Ryzen was smart, they would sign Nate Diaz to a multi-million-dollar deal. And now, just like the PFL, they have a huge stake going up. And, maybe they can cross promote like Ryzen versus PFL to see the Nate Diaz. Like, there's a whole bunch of shit. So Ryzen, the RFF is, it's basically like Pride. You guys know what Pride is or was? Pride FC was like the first global MMA organization before the UFC. They started in like 85 and it went strong until 2000 when the UFC became way bigger and just bought it out. And like small organizations kind of stayed in Japan, and the biggest one was Ryzen and just stayed, and that's the only one left. So the Eastern world, UFC is still the biggest promotion, but like the Eastern world's home promotion and probably second biggest promotion is Ryzen. So it does pander to a lot of people, not in America, in Asia, Africa, Australia, like all Japan, Europe, And again, the UFC reaches them more, but Ryzen is really big over there.
Mhm.
And I got to be honest with you. I don't know what the fuck Nate's doing. Like,
It's a bad
it's a
marketing.
bad look for him.
Bad marketing because like no one knows who Ryzen is, but like if they know that backstory that you just said, it makes sense because like he is like a dog, like he has like he's that loyal fan
Mm-hmm.
or that loyal athlete, I would say, and you know Ryzen being what it is and staying for as long as it has, it makes sense for him to shout that out, but I don't think it's a good move, and you can obviously tell by the likes and the retweets. Like, it ain't nothing special. Like, what the fuck is Ryzen? You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't even know what it is if you didn't just say like that whole spiel. Like, and when I looked at that what he posted, I didn't even know what the fuck it was.
I mean, if you're Nate Diaz,
especially with the Chinese symbol or like I don't know what that is, like the lettering at the
Japanese.
bottom, it threw me off.
Yeah,
because like I'm not looking for that.
You ever heard of like the rising sun in Japan?
War II.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Like that's what it's kind of based off of.
Yeah,
right.
Makes sense.
So here's my thing. If you're Nate Diaz, and again, we talked about this. It's so funny that this came up today because we talked about it on Tuesday about how I haven't heard shit from Nate Diaz's Real Fights Inc., which is the company he was starting, the mixed martial arts company.
Yeah.
Similar to what Khabib did with Eagle FC, except it never really went off the ground. And now he's tweeting about Ryzen. And if you're Nate Diaz, if I'm Nate Diaz, I'm thinking to myself, I don't need to fucking respond to this kid, Jake Paul. And, you know, he's a fucking gangster from California. He doesn't need to do shit. And I'm sure he has enough money and all that stuff. But, I mean, you're posting this for a reason. Like, obviously, you saw everything that went down today and you saw that you got called out.
Yes, sir.
Like, just say something. Like, if you don't want to associate with him, just be like, fuck that kid. Like, I don't got to do that shit. I'm focused on my own thing. And then you plug your own organization.
I know. Why not?
It seems to me like a missed opportunity.
Some response. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a missed opportunity. That's exactly how I look at it.
I don't know. I feel like he's going to do his own thing regardless. Like you said, he wants to make his own like organization out of his own brand, right? He wants to make like a fight organization famous by going in there and just fighting in it or whatever.
Right.
But I don't know. Why not? Like you said, it's a missed opportunity. Why not plug your organization that you want in? Or I don't know. I think what Jake Paul is doing right now is kind of fire.
I really liked it, and I watched this video at like 8:00 in the morning today when it really first dropped. I'd like to point out that I posted about this and broke news about it, and way earlier than a lot of people. So if you guys are following our Twitter, you would have got this news earlier than a lot of other people got it to you at @complete_MMA. But like PFL and Jake Paul both tweeted it out at like 8:00. And I tweeted out at like 8:13. And then, you know, you saw everybody from John Anik and Ariel Helwani. And obviously the UFC didn't respond to it. But like they all kind of came out at 9. So I got there a little early. I'm pretty happy about that. And then one thing I did notice, because this has been a huge point of contention for Jake Paul, is that part of his deal, and I might fuck up the phrasing a little bit, but part of his deal with the PFL is that he's now the head of fighter pay.
I think he is the like the head of fighter, what do you call it?
Compensation, like it's something like that.
Yeah, like he's like the bridge person between like the fighters and the board as to what they're paid or like on the commission, right?
And he said that the super fights division will give 50% of its money to the fighters.
And if that's the case, I think that's game-changing.
It is game-changing, but here's the thing. And like the point I brought up earlier, this is going to take some time. It's going to take a lot of time. I think that if they stick with it, I think that this could be game-changing in 3 years, because then you're going to start seeing the fucking Masvidals and the big names that are out of their contract, and they're going to go to this organization. fuck it if they're 40. Like, they're going to get
Who
money.
cares? Yep.
And by that time, the PFL will grow stronger because I truly believe this move will make PFL the second strongest organization very soon. I think it might be 4 right now, honestly. I know there was a lot of acquisitions last year, but Bellator and ONE FC, I think, are still bigger right now.
Yep.
But with this, PFL is going to be fucking huge. And if Jake Paul is advertising it as much as he thinks or as much as he says, it will get a lot of publicity. So in 2 years, the Super Fights division, I don't know what the fuck they'll get. They might, if they charge $40 for a pay-per-view and they get 400,000 buys, that's 1.6 mil, and they're giving 800,000 to their fighters, which
That's awesome.
is, well, let's talk about it from a technical point. If they get, like I just said, they get 400,000 views, which is legitimately like a bad UFC pay-per-views viewership right now, their amount of pay-per-view buys.
Mm-hmm.
And then depending on how much they charge for it, which they're going to have to, because that's where they'll get their fighter pay from.
No matter what.
Let's just ballpark it and say that they make $1.5 million for the first year. That means that they're going to be $750,000 to their fighters. Now, that sounds real good. That's like $375,000 a fight if there's one fight. If there's 5 fights, now all of a sudden you're talking about like 25 grand per fighter, and it gets dipped. And then you're starting to run into like, okay, who gets paid more, who gets paid less? Main event gets paid this, and now this guy gets paid $10,000 because he didn't, and you're going to run into the same fucking problem. But that's only for the first year.
Yeah.
You know, once it gets big, once they start signing good talent, then they're going to start hitting these $600,000 buys, $1 million buys at $40 is going to be 40 million. And now they're giving 20 million to their fighters. That's when the fucking game changes. That's when you're starting to see like, oh, fuck the UFC. I'm going to finish my deal and go to the PFL. So that's why this move in 3 years, if they stick with it, do it right. And Jake Paul has been a very fucking smart businessman all the way through now and still is, I think, in my opinion, I think he's still being a really smart businessman. So if he does it the right way, and PFL sticks with him,
by far.
I think that this could be this could be huge.
As a fan of MMA, I think you have to root for him now because you have a system where the fighters could potentially benefit, and I feel like the fans could potentially benefit as well. So I think as a fan of UFC, you have to start kind of thinking, all right, Dana, what are you going to do now to keep UFC relevant with this? Because
now I think that no matter how big the PFL gets, the UFC is always going to be bigger. I really do. Like, listen, not for nothing,
right,
but this Super Fights division will probably only have a huge pay-per-view once every 3 months. I'm talking a huge one, like when they get to the million buys, like a huge one, a fucking Jake Paul versus Masvidal, like that type of like spectacle pay-per-view.
Like
that'll happen maybe twice a year, maybe a little bit more when they're getting good. And the UFC is still pumping out 15 pay-per-views a year. Like they'll remain consistent. UFC will, in all likelihood, stay the number one competitor.
It will stay the number one.
But Dana White has been preaching this forever. He says, you don't like fighter pay? Go start your own organization, do better.
Yeah,
and people have tried to do that, and Jake Paul is now in the position where he didn't start the PFL, but make no fucking mistake, he's now the face of the PFL.
More turning
he is basically running that shit.
He has become.
So it's on him, and I wish him the best of luck, and I think he can fucking do it. I really do.
I think that MMA is turning more like into baseball. Like you're getting like the single A, double A, triple A, UFC.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like you're getting like, you know, like stages to, you know, like maybe in 50 years they'll be more established or whatever. But like I feel like it's more turned into like, maybe not, like it's still in that stage where something can overtake something. I feel like maybe like, do you feel like the PFL could be better than the UFC in like 10 years? 5 years, especially with the news going around now. There's a specific reason why the PFL made this announcement
today,
the time that it did, and the signing of Jake Paul with like this whole misogynistic thing with Dana White going on. Like I feel like there's a much more strategic outlook on this thing, and they're trying to overtake the UFC. I just don't ever think it will happen. If the UFC is such a great business now and all the years that they've been doing this, what if they did give the fighters that 50%? And then the PFL is basically like fucked. Like,
Yeah. I don't think
I-
that'll ever happen because of the amount of stakeholders
yeah.
that the
And, like,
UFC has.
The whole monetization that Jake Paul goes into, like the UFC can do the same exact thing, like what
Right.
Sean O'Malley does. Like,
Right.
there's no difference.
If the UFC would put a little bit more percentage of their time and their money into promoting their fighters, and I don't just mean the top 5% of fighters that are already getting
all the
it, all
fighters,
of them.
all
If they
of
were to
them.
do that, which by the way, I think Jake Paul's going to start doing with PFL,
Yeah,
especially if they sign big guys
there's
or
no
any guys really.
there's no reason why the UFC should be having the same fucking commercial for 6 hours when they should be promoting their fighters that they have in the UFC now. Like, even like we get pissed off that we see the same fucking commercial, and we basically know the commercial word for word by the end of the night, which is good for that business, but we're never gonna go see that business or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, you should be promoting your fighters with like montages, or I would much rather see the same montage 3 times, 5 times in one night than the same commercial 30 times in the same night.
You know what I find very interesting? It's a great point you make. You know what I find really interesting? And I retweeted something about this a couple days ago. Promo videos for fights is almost extinct now. Like they'll do it for a main event of a pay-per-view. They'll promote a Sean O'Malley.
It is extinct, and even the press
You
conferences
can't
are. I know
find them anywhere.
Yeah.
You try, and they're like.
But not only that, but they're not doing any more.
no
Do you-
press
Do
conferences
you
anymore.
realize
Nothing.
the amount of
Nothing.
fucking press that they could have gotten? Think about UFC 282 is a perfect example, okay? Jared Gordon versus Paddy Pimblett became the co-main event of that card, and it was a disappointment because Paddy Pimblett and Jared Gordon aren't ranked. But when you have a guy that sells like Paddy Pimblett, if you were to make a promo video, do you know how much more popularity you would have gotten and how much like people would be watching that video forever? You know? And
Yeah.
you could start doing that with so many more fights. The Figueiredo Moreno fight, you can have a huge promo about how it's the first ever quadrilogy. You could have a promo on Glover Teixeira versus Jamal Hill. You could have Gilbert Burns making his way back. And I'm not talking like fucking 10-minute videos. You could do a 2-minute video, but like have a high scale production, have something where the fans are like, look at that shit. Like, holy shit. Gilbert Burns. Like, I haven't looked at Gilbert Burns' Twitter in forever. Let's go check that out.
I can't wait to see that.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
small scale stuff like that. And I get that a minute promotional video on Neil Magny and Gilbert Burns might not change the stake that much, and it might cost you $500K, which in the long scale of runs won't be worth it. But you do this over time, and you're going to start getting more results from it. It's like anything. If you just keep at it, it's going to build, it's going to get better, and people are going to really start taking notice of it.
Kind of like this fucking podcast.
So, like,
bro.
if you were to just keep doing that, and then you can start throwing them on commercials.
There's no reason why a UFC fighter should not have a podcast. Or
Yeah.
like a YouTube channel
Yeah.
or anything, a Twitter, anything. There's no reason. That is on them. That is not up to Dana White to do. Now, maybe the PFL has it set up in a way that makes it easier for the fighter to see that vision in themselves where they don't even have to worry about that. They might get their own crew, which Jake Paul is very good at doing. You know what I mean? He's very successful at YouTube.
Think
He has
about this too.
he has a very knowledgeable aspect on YouTube and promoting yourself and getting yourself to a point where you don't need the PFL. You are yourself, and the PFL is just a platform like YouTube where like you go and you perform your art.
I wonder
what I mean?
if
Like,
there's
kinda
also a gap of age. Like
yeah,
you
true.
see the Sean O'Malley's,
Absolutely.
the Adesanyas, and Adesanya's a little bit older. But I think as far as we keep going in the MMA, in 10 years, we're going to see a lot more people with media brands because they grew up in that environment. You know, I
Yeah.
wonder if that's a part of it. Like people,
yeah.
obviously, everybody in the UFC knows the significance of being relevant in media. Obviously, over the last 3
Yeah.
years, that's become even bigger than it ever was.
Yeah.
And like, you think of guys, I thought of this the other
Think
day.
of John Jones. Think of John Jones, for example.
John Jones is one thing because John Jones
He could have
doesn't fucking need media.
He could hire
That's something.
Yeah, but he could hire 2 people to run a podcast for him
Mhm.
where all his information comes from that podcast, and maybe he tunes in like once every month or 3 months or whatever, and he might, you know what I mean? That's his own thing. He don't even have to be a part of it. Like kind of what like
I
we're
get
doing
that,
now.
but when you're talking about John Jones, he doesn't need any media.
He doesn't
Talking about
need
one of
it,
the
but
greatest of all time.
you're
He
talking
doesn't-
about
His name
getting-
sells it up
Yeah.
itself.
yeah, but he's complaining about not getting enough money from the UFC, and if you want sponsors in your own shit, then you go out and you create your own platform.
Yeah, but what he's doing is I
Like,
get what you're saying. Like
How
maybe
good
if
would the
he's-
John Jones YouTube channel be?
it depends, dude, because you
You
have
don't
to
think
you
that-
got to think about it.
you
There's
don't
a
think you
lot
could
of
get
PR work that would
200,000?
happen.
200,000 subscribers, 100,000.
Of course it would.
Of course it would. That's what I'm getting at.
You got to think about the PR point of view.
100,000 subscribers.
Just from John Jones' perspective, if they did a podcast, they would be subjected to a lot of people saying like, "Why are you only covering the good sides? Why aren't you talking about the shit that happened?" And that'd be something he has to deal with. In just of John Jones, who has 10 million in the bank and doesn't need to really promote himself, and he's saying
Then
he
why is
wants
he
more
asking for more money?
because wouldn't you?
Yeah, but if you want more money, then fucking prove.
But that's what I'm saying. Like in his point of view, like yeah, I would fucking ask for more money too.
Anybody would.
Right.
But the only way you're gonna get more money is if you're making more money on the side. You know.
I don't know if that's completely true.
Not it's completely true, but you're getting a more
It's-
broader audience.
It's
you're getting
definitely
bigger audience.
it's definitely a faster way to do it. I agree with you that if he did this, he would probably make the money that he would want quicker. But all I'm saying is there's a chance, I think, him betting on himself that he'll make that money anyway without having to do
What's
extra media
stopping
stuff.
him?
And this is
from-
just John Jones.
yeah.
Like other people, even greats, they're not John Jones and they don't have the fucking name of
and
John
they
Jones.
could even have a better platform than John Jones because
Yeah.
John Jones is so inactive. Like
Look at all right. Here's an example. Look at Terrence McKinney. Okay, Terrence McKinney's very active on Twitter.
He
He
started a
has a
podcast,
YouTube
yeah.
channel. He has a podcast,
Mm.
and he is a very high level fighter. He's on the borderline of getting ranked. He's like 20 borderline. He's like number 22. You know, he's like
He's right there. He's at
No,
the-
he's
But
right there.
he's
He's
not.
trying to be Paddy Pimblett.
But
back
he's
in the day.
not. He's not a fucking amazing fighter. Like he lost to Drew Dober. He has his faults. He is an above average fighter. He's not an elite fighter, and he's still young. Don't get me wrong. He can get there, and I hope he does because I love Terrence McKinney. But like, he's put himself where everybody knows who he is, and he's an average fighter. He's above average. You know,
Yeah.
like
No,
it's,
he
it's
is
the
above
perfect
average.
example.
He
It's
sets
like
himself
Sean
up for
O'Malley
more
before Sean
opportunities.
O'Malley.
He hypes himself up.
Yeah, exactly.
If he didn't put out a podcast like that,
You know who would
he wouldn't
make
be
a-
hyping himself
You know
up.
who would have a fucking great podcast? I think Derek Lewis.
yes, dude.
I think Derek Lewis would be funny as shit. I would
like,
watch that
even
shit.
like a vlog, not even of him like sparring, just him going through everyday life, eating, going to
That's
the
what I mean. A
gym.
YouTube channel. Like, you
driving
don't have
to
to
his
talk about
home.
MMA at all.
That's what I mean. That is what people need to do more. And I think the UFC does they don't do a job at all. There's no job. They do a very, very poor job.
The UFC
at
wants them to do it
that-
themselves.
Of that aspect right there, not giving their fighters the vision of creating their own content where the UFC could make a gain from that. You know, the UFC is a bigger platform than YouTube in a way because they give the fighter a chance to make a YouTube.
Mhm.
Well, I'm using YouTube as a big example, but there's a thing that these fighters aren't doing to themselves that they're doing a tremendous disservice to themselves. Like they would if they were to hire like me or you or even just you or all of us, everybody as a team to make their own content for like a podcast that they come on once in a while, that is something that is huge for them
Mhm.
in this time that we're in right now. Like they could just fucking if we had Derek Lewis come on for like 12 minutes, dude.
I just wonder about
There's
going
an
back
aspect.
to PFL. I just wonder about how the rise of a promotion like this is going to change the UFC fighter pay. Because again, it's not going to happen for a year or two. And I also wonder the exact constraints of PFL's Super Fights League. Like, say they put on their first promotion, they're giving 50% to the fighters. Say they have
50% of
So they have 3 fights, okay? So 6 fighters, which I think is reasonable for their first one. I think it is because you're saying super fights. You can't have no-namers. You have to have people who at least some people know. Mike Perry, who's not in MMA anymore, he could come back. Dylan Danis. People like that,
Shane Burgos.
that they might not be elite fighters,
Yeah.
but people know them. And that's where you got to start. You got to start with people that know they're not going to be great off the bat.
You're going to
But,
build
like-
off of UFC fans. Like
Absolutely.
People that just UFC
That's the
fans
market
in
that you're in.
general. Just like
But
them.
like their first promotion, what if they do 10,000 buys at $40 and they make 400,000 and all of a sudden they got 400,000 split these 6 people? You know what I mean? That's
50%.
That's the danger that you put on this. Like if you start this brand and you promise all this people and they're not getting guaranteed cash, they're now getting a percentage, which if it does really well, it does really well. If it does really bad, it does really bad. Now all of a sudden you got this guy, Shane Burgos would be a great example, who I don't know what he gets paid.
Because he did get asked to fight Jake Paul.
Right. He would get,
He said he'd take it in a
say
heartbeat.
he gets 50 grand to fight. It might be a little bit less, but say he gets 50 grand to
I
fight
think it would be more.
for PFL.
150.
We got to think the PFL also doesn't do as much numbers as the UFC. So a guy like Shane Burgos, who
Yeah,
might
but
have
Jake
made,
Paul changes that aspect, and I feel like they're going to do something with YouTube.
But he
Like
doesn't-
Jake Paul with YouTube.
I agree with you, but I'm just talking about right now, before Jake Paul. Say Shane Burgos was making 50 grand to fight in the legitimate league of the Professional Fighters League. Now he goes to the Super Fight League, and the
Making
first
50
pay-per-view
grand.
tanks, and he made 10 grand. That's a possibility because
It's a
you're going on
possibility.
percentage now. You're not going on guaranteed fight cash. Is there going to be bonuses for this? Is there 50 grand for knockout of the night? You know, there's going to be a whole lot of details that we're going to have to look over. This is still very new. It's the first day that it's breaking.
Mhm.
But stuff like that, I wonder about. Like, are they going to have to say,
There's no way their revenue is better than the UFC.
oh, it's not even close to the UFC?
That's what I
That's the
mean.
point I'm getting at. A guy like Shane Burgos, who might have made 50 grand in the UFC, he might make 30 grand now. And if this doesn't take off the way it will, which 100% guaranteed, the first Super Fights pay-per-view will be promoted as fuck. No way around.
We're gonna buy that.
Maybe.
Everybody's
Probably.
gonna buy.
We're
that.
gonna talk about it a fuck ton.
That's
We're
what I
gonna
mean.
promote it. We are gonna promote the PFL's Super Fights League
Yeah.
more than the UFC promotes their own pay-per-views. You know what I mean? Like, not from a money standpoint, but from just a
we kind of need to
consistent
go.
talk
We
about
were
it.
talking about this at the bar.
I
We kind of
want
need
to.
to watch the PFL. So like
I
maybe
want
that,
to. I
like
just
you're gonna
think
be
that-
working. Maybe that'll be me and his kind of shindig
Mhm.
that we got going on. Like
Why, when
PFL.
did the PFL's events happen?
I'm pretty
I
sure
don't even know.
PFL's Friday,
Friday night.
or is
Yeah.
that Bellator? That's Friday, and PFL
Bellator is
Saturday
Friday.
as well.
All right.
PFL might.
I've
be
been getting
Saturday.
into Bellator a lot more lately. I really think Bellator, if they did more promotion,
It's
they
exciting.
have the second best
What-
roster
Can I?
in
Yes.
MMA.
Can I say, like, what if, like, this PFL, like, they started promoting, like, YouTubers or, like, people on Rumble or, like, people on
I
Twitch?
think they will.
That is going. The
KSI.
market.
There you go.
Podcasts like us, maybe
He
they
already has
sign
a
up.
fight right now, I believe. but
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
like,
fighting FaZe Temper.
I think.
KSI's boxing FaZe Temper.
It's ridiculous.
I think that is
I just
Fucking
see
a
Dylan
that.
Dennis.
huge market that is
Whoa.
definitely missed out, dude. Definitely missed out. YouTubers that are getting their
Where's
own
Anthony Pettis
commercial.
right now?
PFL.
PFL.
PFL, right?
He's also a good 20 pounds less than Jake Paul.
Guess
He would
what?
beat Jake Paul in an MMA
He's
fight.
going into the Super Fighters League. I can
Yes,
tell you
that's
that
what
right now.
that's what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
I think I still have my
You
database
should,
for
you
the
know
PFL.
what? We should assemble a Super Fighters League roster. That would
We
sell.
should.
That'd be cool.
We can create
should do
so
that.
much content off of just this announcement that it is insane.
All right, so Fabricio Verdum is in PFL. Gleason Tebow, who is the guy that almost beat Khabib. I don't know if you remember that guy. Ray Cooper is one of their best champions right now. Roush Manfio, Anthony Pettis, Olivier Aubin-Mercier. They just signed Shane Burgos and Thiago Santos. They'll be in there. And that's the thing about this that PFL might have a fucking problem with is that, like, if this Super Fights League starts going well, is all of their fighters going to want to start going there? You know what I mean? Are they going to have contracts where they say, like, you have to compete in our regular leagues and you can compete in the Super League? That's something that they're going to have to go. Because
Definitely.
the more people tune into PFL Super Fights, it's obviously better for the PFL, but think of it from a business point. Jake Paul's equity he owns is in the Super Fights League. So now, if people tune into the Super Fights League and not the PFL, now it's Jake Paul's, like, really fucking head of this company. And is there going to be a time where PFL just turns into Super Fights and it basically becomes the biggest platform of YouTube boxing? I don't know. Like, that's, like, I'm just kind of spitballing here.
No,
That seems like an almost logical
it's another great
outcome to me.
Yeah, it's another great it's another good shot at an outcome, or I think it's a good possibility.
I think that this is you can't really compare it to anything. It's really the closest thing you can compare it to is what I was talking about earlier, is like UFC overtaking Pride. Like, I don't think we're gonna get here, but in this analogy right now, the UFC is Pride and PFL is the UFC.
There was a point in time Pride almost did overtake the UFC.
Yeah.
The UFC conquered. And listen, I think the more competition, the better.
I do too, and I think the fighters
That makes both leagues better.
I think the fighters think more competition is better.
I think we're going to see a lot of people go to PFL. I'm not going to lie. Like,
I
think
hope
so, too.
more
You could
fighters go to the PFL.
There's over
and I hope they
600
get paid bread.
Yeah,
You know
there's
what?
over 600 fighters in the UFC. I could definitely see 100 going to PFL. Like,
and that's the thing. The UFC
That's
will
great. That's a
always
good
be
thing,
the
though.
name of the UFC. People will take less money to go to the UFC because their
Yeah.
lifelong dream has been to become a UFC champion. Like, people will always still go to the UFC.
Yeah.
UFC can afford to lose these guys, even big guys. A Jorge Masvidal. The UFC could eventually be like, yeah, you can go. Like, it's going to make them bigger, but it's not going to make us smaller. We have another Jorge Masvidal just waiting in the wings kind of thing.
Arguably they could lose them right now. I feel like, more to your point, and it would still be exciting.
I agree.
Say,
The only thing is that, I don't know if you guys remember this. So Masvidal versus Covington was UFC 272 in February or March last year. And they announced right before that Masvidal just signed one of the most lucrative fucking contracts in UFC history. And then he lost to Covington. We haven't seen him since. So I don't know what's going on with that, but I would assume he still has like 5 fights, upwards of like 4 million on the table with the UFC, something like that. So the UFC might be like, sorry, buddy, you fight 4 more times and then you can go to the PFL, which I wholeheartedly believe that they will do, because it's super smart on their part, because that gets Jorge Masvidal to want to fucking fight, which makes more money for the UFC.
No, definitely. I didn't hear that take. I didn't know that he had.
Yeah, I don't know the details of it. I don't know if it's a 2-fight contract. I don't know if it's an 8-fight contract.
Yeah,
he's like 36, so I would doubt that it's like really massive.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really interesting, and I would love to do that. I would love to make a roster for super fights. I gotta say, going back to our original point, I think it's gonna be not this year that Jake Paul steps in an MMA fight. I don't think that.
I don't think so.
yeah,
either.
Nate Diaz is going to take a sweet time. Unless we fight someone else than Nate Diaz, then.
And I don't think Nate's boxing him. I don't think he has any reason to go over there and go box
Right.
him.
By the way, another story came out today that Tommy
but-
Fury is still in talks of boxing Jake Paul.
It's not happening.
No way.
I agree, but I'm just saying that's another aspect of it.
That's more likely to happen than Nate boxing Jake Paul.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would even say that, because now, if you looked at Jake Paul a year ago when he was, or maybe even more than a year ago, year and a half, whatever it was, when he was in talks with boxing Tommy Fury, that would have been a step up for him. That would have been like getting him to another level, getting more popularity. And now it's almost a step back. Like, I get people want to see the fight, but for Jake, it might be like, I've been there, done that,
True. Yeah.
So maybe from Jake's perspective, he might not even take that fight anymore.
No, probably not.
And I can't blame him for it either. So like,
Yeah, definitely.
it is with everything that's going on too. Obviously, the thing that happened with Dana White, him slapping his wife, getting caught on camera. It's fucking.
It's fine.
It's such great timing.
Which, I mean, she did slap him.
That's what I mean.
first.
No, that's what I said. It's a perfect
Listen,
time.
it is what it is. We know what happened.
There's
I'm not
a-
going to be like the thing that Dana White's in the news for. Like, he did. He got caught on a TMZ camera,
Can we also
getting hit and then hitting his wife.
Yes, thank you.
I wouldn't call it
wife hit-
self-defense, but it was.
No,
It was.
it was not self-defense.
It
Wasn't
was a fight.
self-defense.
It was, yeah.
His
It's
wife
literally
should
what it
not.
was.
His wife should not hit
And
him
we're not going to
first.
get into that whole spiel, but that's what happened in the
It
UFC
was-
lately.
Both parties were wrong. But
And
it
then
was
Ilya Topuria.
relationship things.
And
But
then Ilya
what-
Topuria. Did you guys hear about this?
No.
Yeah, he fucked up a singer.
And it wasn't even so. Ilya Topuria. There was a camera angle at a bar in Spain where Ilya Topuria lives, and the report came out saying, yeah, he was on like a fucking pinball machine. All of a sudden, out of camera, this guy comes in and just shoves him twice. Topuria fucking clocks him, knocks him out. Everybody crowds around him. And it says that it was this Spanish singer named Omar Montez, who I guess is like pretty popular in Spain. And it wasn't. It wasn't even fucking Montez. It was just a guy that was at the bar, and Toporia's. It comes from the left side of the camera angle, hits Topuria. On Toporia's right is Montez. And it said that he beat him up. So it's like, Topuria beating up a Spanish celebrity when in reality he just beat some fucking guy up who shoved him. Like, that was, in my opinion, self-defense.
Yeah.
But, you're a UFC fighter. Can you really call it self-defense when you just absolutely fucking knock some guy's teeth down his throat? Like, I guess you could, but
I mean, if I was playing an arcade game and someone came up
at that
pushing
point,
me,
aren't you considered like?
yeah, but you're not a UFC fighter. That's the thing. Like I get
saying.
if someone throws a fist
what are you
at
supposed
you,
to do? Just take it?
no, you're supposed to like
Run?
shove him back, like try to talk
What if
him
he
right out of
starts?
it. And I'm not saying you should do that. I'm saying you could do that.
Why not put him in a choke and fucking choke him out or something like that? Like
I'm not saying what he did was wrong.
No, and
I would say it's self-defense,
And
but
I
I'm
get
saying he
that.
could have done something else.
yeah, and I get that it's when you're in the moment.
Right.
Who the hell knows? You know what I mean?
Who the hell am I to say that he should have done it when I wasn't in that situation? I get all
You're
that.
a UFC guy. You knock people out for a living.
But like, you got fucking that happened with Dana. You got this happened with Ilya. You got this happened with the PFL. And everybody who's not in the know is like, what the fuck's happened in the UFC? And now they're like, oh, okay, the PFL. I guarantee you the amount of people who didn't know the PFL was a thing yesterday, like 5 million people probably know what it is now. Like the amount of change in scales. The UFC was here. I would say Bellator was here. PFL's here. And like, honestly, it's not much, but it fucking tipped a little bit today.
It tipped.
It really did.
It tipped. Oh, it tipped majorly.
And
Just from one video, which like I might think that this is the peak because now they need to back up everything.
breaking news, the NFL has announced that Bengals versus Bills game that happened on Monday night is canceled officially. It will not be resumed or postponed. So that will be a win for the Bills because they were winning 7. I believe the Bills were winning 7-3.
No, the Bengals were.
The Bengals were. All right, so that's a win for the Bengals. By the way, Damar Hamlin is conscious, talking. He has all of his neurological symptoms intact. He's good.
Oh, cool.
Just saying. I don't know if you guys had heard that. Woke up today or last night, I believe. So while that's
What do you think about Skip?
Skip Bayless.
Yeah, Bayless.
If it was any other reporter, I would almost be inclined to defend them because listen, journalists fuck up. Like people are human, but Bayless has been doing this for 20 years. You gotta know better, bro. You gotta know. You know that you have 5 million Twitter followers, and what the fuck you just said. Like I don't know. It's a Monday night
He's definitely
at
in the
8
final.
o'clock on New Year's.
Maybe
he was not in the best
crabby old
state to be
man.
tweeting.
He's in the
Maybe
finals
he's a
of some
crabby old
fucking
man.
fantasy
But-
football league.
Come on,
I'm gonna
bro.
tell you that off camera. I'm gonna tell you that off camera.
Mm.
No, I won't. I lost my matchup this week because I had Joe Mixon, who didn't finish his game. It was for the 3rd place in my league, which would have got my money back, and I lost by 2 points. That I'm not saying fucking woe is me. I'm not crying about it. Obviously, the game should be canceled. I'm in favor of it. I'm just saying that's what happened.
I'm glad I'm not in the finals. My dad was in the finals. I don't know if he definitely won because he had a good week.
Yo, in my friends league, the finals, the two
he
teams
lost.
The 2 teams that were in the finals, one had Josh Allen, the other had Joe Burrow as their quarterbacks. So they literally just said, let's just split the money, bro. Like, let's just fucking split it. And they did. Because, your quarterbacks got you 2 points and 3 points, whatever the fuck it
Christian
was.
McCaffrey went off.
Okay.
Yeah, my dad lost. My dad
so,
lost. Second place. First loser.
So I think there was some other things.
Damn,
We've been talking about the
That
PFL for a
sucks.
minute, and we're going to continue
That
talking
sucks.
about the PFL forever.
That sucks.
So what?
Yeah, my dad fucking
Oh,
came in
okay.
second, bro.
So we're going to be talking about this PFL thing forever, and it's not going away anytime soon. And I think it's going to be a driving force for a lot of content on this channel. I got to be honest with you, pretty
We
excited
just
about
talked
it.
about it
because-
for 35 minutes.
So you put out a tweet earlier today that I retweeted and shit. There was some other stuff you want to talk about, right?
Yeah, I more or less just did that to promote the last pod and just to gain. It was a very long.
We had
stretch.
260 live viewers
I
on the
know
last
you was telling me
podcast.
about it. It's awesome.
Out of fucking nowhere. That's
Title.
ballooned to like 480, I believe,
That's
across
Very
all
title.
platforms.
Title.
Yeah. And for some reason, my personal Twitter had the most views. Like more than Fans Only, more than MMA Complete, more than Fans Only's Facebook, who also did views.
People from our school are watching.
I think so. I think it also. I don't know
Maybe,
if you can really kind of tell. I can kind of blow it up.
Blow
I
it
do
up,
this
bro.
on.
Blow it up.
I do this on purpose, but
Do your
like
shit, King.
it could also be the fact that I kind of have a professional looking profile. I don't know if that has anything to do with it,
What a
but like when
nice
it goes
smile
trending,
you got, bro.
that was from years ago. Look how
Some
small my
years.
mustache
Look at how much
is.
hair you got.
Look how small my mustache is.
How
The
much-
fucking
Look how much hair
pencil
you got.
days. Yeah, my hairline's even worse now. That's fucking great. But yeah, we did. What did I get? I got like over 100 just on my channel.
Hey, are the Bucks still underdog this weekend?
Don't know. I have not been paying attention to football betting at all.
Neither by. But I saw that the Bucks, I think, were underdogs.
107 viewers on my channel.
107 viewers on Zach Jable's Twitter, bro.
Wow.
Title, bro. Title.
Yeah, it was. John Jones was trending through the whole thing, and Jake Paul's been trending today. And I pushed the shit out of Jake Paul tweets before this happened.
And nothing
And
happened.
we've had a decent amount of viewers.
Oh.
I don't think it's anything like yesterday, but we've had a good amount.
Yesterday was kind of weird, dude. It's just like we got done with the pod and we looked at it. I was fucking laughing. It's like,
Yeah.
It was like
Yeah, it
retarded.
was weird.
I shouldn't say that word.
So we are
Special needs.
getting close to. Yeah, you really shouldn't say that word.
What do you mean?
So we are really getting close to the
Better
first
than the
fight
other
week,
word.
fight night of the year, January 14th. Kelvin Gastelum versus Nasruddin Imavov. Who you guys got?
Gasol.
I'm kind of wanting to take Gastelum, to be honest with you.
Really? I got Imavov.
You're a bitch.
Yeah.
Listen, Gastelum is.
I'm not betting on either.
On the way out, I guess.
He's not even on his way out. If you look at his fucking fights, man, he's 1 for 7 in his last fights. And all 6 of them have been top 8 ranked at some point.
First fighter
Like,
to
he
interact
fights
with us, by
Really,
the way.
really
Bangers.
good people, yeah.
Bangers. What?
First fighter to interact with us, by the way.
Gastelum?
Yeah.
Really?
He was the
Must have been a while ago.
like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know. See,
Imavov, on the other hand, is on a 4-fight win streak.
the way main events have been going, though, and the way that
New Year?
I know New Year, but
I know what you're saying, though. There's a lot of underdogs were winning.
I
A
don't know.
lot, bro.
And if he's been having a really bad stretch and he still looks good and he comes in for weight fine, I mean, I don't know.
So you got Gastelum, who's 1-6 in his last 6. I apologize. And look at those names. Adesanya, Till, Hermanson, Whitaker, Cannonier. Those are fucking great names.
He lost to Till, though.
Did he really?
He lost to Till in Till's first fight in middleweight. That is definitely the worst loss of that 6-fight stretch. But you look at all the other guys. Cannonier, banger. Whitaker, banger. Hermanson is kind of falling off, but at the time was a fucking banger.
Ian Heinisch.
And obviously Adesanya. And that's the
He
only
might
thing.
win
His
this
only win is Ian Heinisch, who is, to his credit,
Yay.
at the time he was like top 20.
He was
fallen
good, he was
off a little
good.
bit since.
Yeah. He's
But
I
then
don't
you look at Imavov, who has been on a tear. Also beat Heinisch, beat Shabazian, beat Joaquin Buckley.
The Shabazi one's impressive.
So we're looking at
That's
70.
the one.
We're looking at a 75-inch reach versus a 71-inch reach, so 4-inch reach advantage.
All right,
for
I'm a
Imavov.
Bob's win.
Just saying.
He's winning. Yeah, he's winning.
Looking at takedown accuracy, 32 for Gastelum versus 23 for Imavov. I don't think defense for Imavov is a little bit better. He's
Yeah.
been in a lot less fights though. And he's a lot younger. I think Imavov, it's a 5-round fight.
Mm-hmm.
It's Gastelum's first 5-round fight in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's Imavov's first 5-round fight.
Yes.
I would put my money on Imavov having better cardio. Gastelum's always been kind of pudgy. And Imavov's like a skinny dude.
Yeah, but Gastelum got the belt and he fought, I feel like, for 5 rounds for a little while, so that doesn't really scare me.
That Gastelum Adesanya fight was a fucking banger, dude.
That was a good fight.
was
I
an
rewatched
amazing
that
fight.
not too
That was
long
fight of
ago.
the year of like 2018, 2019.
Great fight.
I think it was 2018.
That's the one where he's like, I'm ready to die.
Yeah,
Isn't he?
yep. And he 10-8 Gastelum in the 5th round. After Gastelum knocked him down, the only person to knock down Adesanya, I believe, is
After
Kelvin
that.
Gastelum.
Besides Alex Pereira.
Pereira never knocked him down. He stayed standing to get knocked out.
Knocked him out, though.
Yeah, he knocked him out. Yeah. So after that, we got UFC 283. and I'm ready to start formulating our first pod bet of the year. Just saying, we don't got to talk about it too much, but I think it should be on your guys' radar.
Let's do it.
So, who do we have? Glover Teixeira or Jamal Hill? And before we talk about that, if you guys want to go check out our Twitter at @complete_MMA, where we put out polls constantly. We've talked about all the latest and greatest UFC news, including the PFL stuff with Jake Paul, which we'll be continuing to do over the next coming months. We also ran a poll that just ended like 6 hours or 6 minutes ago, or 6 minutes before the podcast started, in which I asked who you guys have. We got over like 100 votes, and I believe I'm going to check the stats and double check here. But who will be the UFC champion? 58% of our 104 votes said Jamal Hill. So it was a close race, but people do believe Jamal Hill will win. And I got to be honest with you, that coupled with the fact that Glover Teixeira is the underdog in this fight is kind of crazy to me.
Why? He's the underdog?
It's very close. I want to say he's like plus 105. But
Wow.
yes, I would think that he'd be like minus 170.
Me too.
Listen, and the biggest reason I say that is not because Jamal Hill has never bought in a championship fight. It's not because he's never beaten anyone top 5, mind you. He's never even beaten anyone top 5. It's the fact that Jamal Hill's last fight against a jiu-jitsu artist, he got his fucking arm broken in the first round. Against Paul Craig. His only loss in like 8 fights.
Ooh, yeah.
He had his arm broken by Paul Craig. And Glover Teixeira's plus 105, Jamal Hill's minus 125. Davison Figueiredo is also the favorite for his fight against Brandon Moreno, who are both at a negative number. So what to do?
We've talked about this before.
What to do?
Figueiredo.
His arm-
Teixeira.
I don't want to bet on Figueiredo Moreno. To me, that neither of them is a
I don't
lock.
want to take anybody in there.
If I had to guess, I'm also going to say Figueiredo.
I think Figueiredo will win,
But
I'm
I don't
gonna
wanna
sprinkle.
take him, no.
I'm gonna sprinkle on.
I'm going to sprinkle
Figueiredo.
on Figueiredo by decision. Which, by the way, if he's minus 115, Figueiredo by decision is going to be like plus
300,
1. I
plus
think it's going to be like
250.
plus 180. I think it's going to be very close because I
He
think
could've
both of
finished
them
the
by
last
decision.
fight, though.
No, he didn't. Moreno choked out Figueiredo once. Figueiredo won by decision, and then they drew. So, Figueiredo is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He has the possibility of submitting him.
Glover and Gastelum plus
Glover's winning by
463.
sub.
There is some more interesting fights. Caitlin Vieira versus Raquel Pennington is a top 5 fight in women's bantamweight. Who the winner will be number 2 because I want to say Amanda Lemos is going to get the next shot at the Amanda Nunes. Umar Nurmagomedov is fighting Raoni Barcelos. He's minus 550, but he will be winning that fight. Did you fucking see this? Remember when I texted you, Garb? Remember when I texted you saying, have you seen the newest roster watch update?
Yes. Oh, Nick Fury.
Nick Fiore, who's a 25-year-old from New England. When I looked on his Tapology page, it had no picture, and it said all that shit. I'm like, bro, Nick Fiore's in the fucking UFC. What? And
Nick Fury is.
You know who Nick Fiore is? We
Getting
went to
on
school
great.
with him.
I think I might.
Yeah.
Vin Fury had twins.
We literally went to school with a kid, Nick Fiore, 25, from New England. Like, I was like
Went to the army.
all set. I was literally about to like text him and be like, dude, you got to come on my pod, like all this shit. It's not him, obviously.
It's not him.
No,
bro.
it's not him.
You can check the comments, and there's pictures of him.
Yeah.
It's not Nick Fury,
So
but he is 6-0.
Roman Kopylov is also plus 140 on this card, which is interesting to me. So Kopylov is a maybe. I think Vieira is winning this fight. Nurmagomedov is winning this fight. And then I think Imavov's winning this fight. So Imavov's the only lock I got. Although Kopylov's very interesting at plus 140. Kopylov. And then who do you guys have? Jamal Hill or Glover Teixeira? I'm interested to hear who you guys have.
I mean, I watched Jamal Hill versus Thiago Santos again.
Yep.
I rewatched that, and I just saw Thiago Santos take down Jamal Hill so many times, and I feel like if Thiago Santos can do it,
If I remember that fight correctly, I believe Thiago Santos really lost while they both got very gassed,
yes,
right?
In
And
the
I believe
fourth
that was
round.
like the biggest downfall of Thiago Santos.
And it was.
And we just saw Glover win 5 rounds with Yuri and didn't get gassed.
At all. So, I think that plays a huge part in it as well. Teixeira has the experience.
Yep.
He's been to the 5th round.
And not for nothing, but if Glover outboxed Yuri Prochazka in that fight, which nobody thought was
I
going to
think he
happen.
could do.
And if you can outbox Yuri, I think you have at least a good chance to outbox Jamal.
And you know what? Glover's done it time and time again. He outboxed Anthony Smith. He outboxed, Prohashka.
Mhm.
And I feel like he also outboxed Jan a little bit, which I feel like he took him down more.
Yeah.
And that's
No, I
like-
think he did too in the first round.
But, so, I think we're going to see it again.
What do you think, Garth?
I think whatever Steve thinks. That's what I think.
What did Steve think?
I'm going with what Steve think because
Steve didn't make a pick, by the way.
Steve,
We
that's
kind of
why
did.
I'm still going
Did. We kind of did.
with what Steve thinks because Steve knows best.
Mhm.
So Steve,
We
what do you
should
think?
we should start calling you like Steve can do it or something. Like that.
Yeah, Steve will do it.
Steve can do it.
will.
Steve can do it.
Steve will.
Yeah.
What
is the pick?
I don't know if
I
you-
like Glover.
I don't know if you-
I was watching
picking
our
Glover.
Yeah.
Twitter.
I don't know if you remember this, but when this fight first got announced, because we were talking about is UFC 282 rigged because now all of a sudden they got
Yeah,
a new championship
yeah.
fight. Like
Yeah.
I mean,
I was
not
I was
rigged, not
saying
rigged.
like
not right.
I was saying like I think Jamal Hill can win this, and it was a hot take at the time because everyone was saying Glover should win. And I think it's very close. If I'm going to bet on this fight, it's going to be Glover. I don't feel like Jamal Hill is a lock, whereas I feel like Glover is more of a lock. So I guess that's kind of me saying I pick Glover, but I really think it's fucking close.
How
It's
much you
a
putting? How much you
banger,
putting
though.
on it? How much? You
The
putting on it?
first
Are you
three-
straight.
I am not picking the under in that fight. I'll tell you that much. I'll
Straight
pick the
betting?
over.
Imavov and Teixeira is plus 202.
I don't like that.
I kind of like that. If I'm
Wait,
straight betting,
plus 202?
Yeah.
I don't like that.
if I'm straight betting, it's not a lot. I'm gonna chill out a little bit with betting this year.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I need to get.
I'm
a
gonna
track.
stick with money lines.
Put $50 on that.
It's
What's that,
100.
200 bucks?
It's 101.
Is it 100? Oh, yeah.
Whoa. Yeah.
It's 150.
I need to get a John Deere.
UFC 283. They don't have Gilbert Burns versus Neil Magny, but that fight is confirmed for the card,
Yeah.
which is Gilbert Burns all the way. And I think he will be a heavy favorite too. What else do we got on the card? We have Lauren Murphy, Jessica Andrade. We have Paul Craig versus Johnny Walker. Both of those fights are super interesting. Jessica Andrade has that in the bag. If she comes in anything less than minus 300, I think I'm going to hammer her. Jessica
Really?
Andrade will win that fight, yes. Paul Craig, Johnny Walker's polarizing for me because Paul Craig looked terrible in his last fight against a striker. Johnny Walker actually showed that he has some jiu-jitsu capability in his last fight against Ion Cutelaba. But how did the two mesh together? Because you got a guy like Johnny Walker who, if he even tries to use his jiu-jitsu, Paul Craig will fuck him up and submit him.
I'm taking Paul Craig.
But if Paul Craig tries to stand like he did with Volkan Ozdemir, Johnny Walker will almost very likely knock the fuck out of Paul Craig. So it's like, what do they want to do? Paul Craig is the kind of guy that will stand until the fight goes to the ground. So if he tries to do that, I can see Johnny Walker knocking him out.
Paul Craig's 6-fight deal today signed.
Yep. But
That's a big deal.
But
That's a lot of fights.
if Paul Craig can get the fight to the ground and Johnny Walker thinks like, okay, maybe my jiu-jitsu can hold, I think Paul Craig will fuck him up. So that's a very interesting fight for me. To be honest with you, I think it is noteworthy to say that Paul Craig just signed a 6-fight deal. And I think that his name became a lot bigger than what it was last year, 2021 to 2022. I think he got much bigger.
Johnny Walker.
100%.
But like, if I'm being honest, I think that this is a last-ditch effort for Johnny Walker. I think that he needs to fucking prove himself here. He beat Ion Cutelaba. No offense to Ion Cutelaba, but everyone's beating Ion Cutelaba. Still a good fighter. So like, Johnny Walker, this would be his first top 15 win in a while. We saw him get KO'd, one of the knockouts of the year from Jamal Hill earlier in 2022. So yeah, I think that fight's super interesting, and I'm really, to be honest with you, I'm not really into either fighter that much, but I think it's a close fight to the point where I'm like, I kind of want to see it.
Oh, I would love to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't take any of them. I don't think that either of them are a lock, like you're saying, but I would take Paul Craig if I had to take one. I just think, like you said, Johnny Walker's on the out. I don't feel like he has much longer in the UFC.
To be honest with you, it's weird because all of these guys and ladies are pretty big names. There's nobody that I feel like should not be on the main card of this pay-per-view.
That is a really good main card.
But I would argue that the only fight I'm really interested, like I need to watch, is Glover Teixeira Jamal Hill. Like Gilbert Burns, Neil Magny, it should probably be a good fight, and I'll take the over because I think it goes over. But I think Gilbert Burns wins 30-27. To be honest with you, Figueiredo Moreno, I just did an article on trilogies, and they have one of the best rivalries ever. But I'm like, I've seen everything from these fucking guys. I'll
talked about this.
I'll be glad for whoever wins, but I'm not busting down doors to watch the fucking
fourth, fifth,
they've already fought for an hour and 15 minutes in the cage, or like an hour and 2 minutes in the cage.
Not exciting.
You know what I mean? So it's going to be an hour and a half of just them fighting in the cage. That I'm like,
goes to decision. You just said hour and a half.
I do.
It has to, right?
Lauren Murphy, Jessica Andrade. It's like, to me, I actually like Jessica Andrade. She had one of the submissions of the year last year, but it's like I've seen that. Like in either way,
Andrade is winning that fight.
Yeah, that's what I was just saying. In either way, neither of them's beaten Shevchenko, so does it really fucking matter? And then Johnny Walker, Paul Craig, that's like a middling top 15.
Johnny Walker's winning that, I feel like.
And see, I kind of like Paul Craig too.
I think Johnny Walker knocks him out. Paul Craig looks so bad in this last fight.
So that's.
I feel like that was just a fluke, bro. I don't know.
I kind of am of that opinion too. I don't think it's a fluke because I do think he has a lot to improve standing up.
Yeah.
There is a couple fights on the prelims that are interesting. Brad Tavares, Gregory Rodriguez, the winner of that will be ranked. Brad Tavares is on the out. Gregory Rodriguez is on the in for the UFC, though. He's the guy that had the veins.
He's winning that fight.
Shogun Hua is fighting in most likely his retirement fight, so that is a legend retiring. I will definitely watch that.
I'll definitely bet against him.
Guram Kutateladze had to pull out of his fight against Thiago Moises, so that fight won't be happening anymore. But Jailton Almeida versus Shamil Abdurakhimov might be the most important non-title fight on this card.
You taking Almeida?
100%.
Yeah, huh?
I'm taking Jailton Almeida by submission in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
No
Seriously,
shit.
I want to bet on that.
Huh.
Because Shamil Abdurakhimov only got in the top 15 because he knocked Chris Dawkins out like 2 years ago.
I might take Jailton Almeida.
And he's a slow, fat, heavy hitter that is going up against a guy, Jailton Almeida, who is similar to John Jones in the sense he was 205 and then now fights at 240 and is submitting everybody he fucking fights.
Oh, shit.
So that fight is like a gimme. I put Jailton Almeida on my short list for most improved fighter of the year because he didn't have any fights in the UFC, and then he took 3 short notice fights this year in the UFC and won them all against, the heavyweight division outside of the top 10 really is kind of scrubbish. That top 10 has done really well last year, but outside of it, it's like, meh. And Jailton Almeida will be in the top 10 by the end of this year, easily, in my opinion. So I'm excited about that. Terrence McKinney is fighting, so that's cool. And then, Warley Alves, Nicholas Dalby's okay. But for Terrence McKinney to be fighting at 7 o'clock on a pay-per-view, that's pretty good.
Who's he fighting?
He's fighting Ismail Bonfim, who is also – it's 2 guys from Brazil that got on this card somehow. And he's fighting Terrence McKinney. Terrence McKinney is a submission artist, and he's going up against a Brazilian guy. I got to be honest with you, I know nothing about Ismail Bonfim. It's either going to be a really close fight or Terrence McKinney's going to look stupid. I'm sorry. It's going to be a very easy fight for McKinney.
Yeah.
Or he's going to look stupid. And I would put my money on him winning.
Yes.
But that's UFC 283.
Terrence McKinney's going to be electric, hopefully.
And then also after that fight, we got
fight.
Derek Lewis versus Sergey Spivak in the fight that was supposed to be UFC Seoul. And then didn't happen.
Yeah, I know, because Korean Zombie got
Derek Lewis up.
Yeah, he is. He's taking him down and fucking him up.
He is fucking him up so bad.
And then what do you do with Derek Lewis, man?
I don't know.
He could still knock anybody the fuck out. And he's a big name.
Well, what do you do with Tai Tuivasa? You know what I mean? Like,
Tai Tuivasa is a little different to me. Because if Tai Tuivasa didn't have that fight against Cyril Gane that he did, I would think he's the same as Derek Lewis.
that's what I mean.
Because he went 4 rounds with Cyril Gane in a very competitive fight, knocked down Cyril Gane, took a lot of heavy shots.
Mhm.
And I never thought he may be able to make out of round 2 kind of thing. But he did, and he did really well. But he's in a very similar boat. And I think if he loses another 2 fights, like that could be it. But you look at the guys he's lost to. Tai Tuivasa in his recent stretch has only lost to Cyril Gane and Sergey Pavlovich.
Great fights.
Yeah.
Great fights.
So yeah, that's what we got in store. February 11th, the big one, boys. February 11th. Mark your calendars.
That's a good one.
Number 1 fighter in the UFC right now will be decided on February 11th.
Yair Rodriguez.
Heart says Volk, head says Makachev.
I'm going Yair Rodriguez, dude.
I am. I'm definitely going Yair Rodriguez. I'm pretty sure he has a sizable reach advantage as well.
Okay. Because Josh Emmett barely won his last fight. But...
Right. I know a lot of people says he shouldn't, and I kind of agree with him.
Mm-hmm.
So Rodriguez is sporting a 71-inch reach. Emmett's sporting a 70, so it's really not that different.
Emmett got power, though. Not saying he doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but Yair's got a friggin' chin, bro.
He does.
I don't know if you're going to end it, but I got to go. I got to take a piss.
Yeah, I'm about to end it anyway. Make sure you guys check us out on our Twitter at @complete_MMA, where we've been doing a lot of new shit. We have been growing. We've been posting a lot of new stuff. Make sure you give myself a follow at DrapoZach. Make sure you give Austin a follow at Garvey_Austin. Steve, you want to plug your Twitter?
Steve Occur.
Next time.
Steve Occur. So that's going to really do it for us, guys. Make sure you stay tuned because we have a lot of stuff coming aboard, especially with this Jake Paul and PFL news and just overall content. In general, I've been posting articles a lot lately, and I'm going to continue to do that.
Boom.
And yeah, John Jones and Colby Covington till I die. That's it.
Boom.
Boom.